Year 2135, humanity's long-held belief that we weren't alone in the universe was finally confirmed. The massive Vexari ships appeared in Earth's orbit without warning, their sleek obsidian hulls reflecting our planet's blue glow like dark mirrors. World leaders scrambled to establish communication protocols while citizens worldwide watched the skies with a mixture of wonder and fear. The Vexari came bearing gifts and knowledge. They spoke perfect English and dozens of other human languages, explaining they had been monitoring our broadcasts for decades. Their ambassador, a tall, gray-skinned being named Taylor, addressed the United Nations with promises of friendship and technological exchange. "We welcome Earth into the galactic community," Taylor announced, his thin lips barely moving as he spoke. "Your species has shown remarkable progress despite your limitations." That last word hung in the air, the first hint that something wasn't quite right. For the first 6 months, things seemed promising. The Vexari established embassies in major cities and offered limited access to their medical technology. Cancer rates dropped, clean energy solutions appeared. But Dr. Jiwoo Park, a xenobiologist from Seoul University, noticed troubling patterns in their behavior. "They're studying us like lab specimens," she told her colleague, former Marine Captain Do-Hyun Kim, as they analyzed footage from a diplomatic reception. "Watch how they observe our reactions, how they test our limits." Do-Hyun, who had been assigned as security liaison to the Vexari embassy, had his own concerns. "They've rejected every request to visit their homeworld. And have you noticed how they never share anything about their military capabilities?" Their suspicions were confirmed when Earth's representatives were finally invited to attend a galactic council meeting. Seated in the far back of the massive chamber, human delegates watched as representatives from 27 alien species discussed trade routes, territorial disputes, and resource allocations. When Earth's ambassador attempted to participate in a discussion about water rights in the Proxima system, the chamber fell silent. Taylor rose from his prominent seat. "Perhaps our new friends misunderstand their position," he said, triggering ripples of clicking sounds, laughter from the assembly. "Earth has yet to demonstrate any meaningful contribution to our alliance. Their technology is primitive, their biology inefficient, their societal structure chaotic. They require thousands of hours of sleep, constant hydration, and their lifespans are tragically brief." The chamber erupted in more clicking as the human delegates sat stunned. "Nevertheless," Taylor continued, "their planet possesses valuable resources. We shall guide them, as we have guided other developing species." In the months that followed, the true nature of humanity's position became clear. Humans were granted limited access to galactic trade networks, but the most advanced technologies remained restricted. Earth-based companies found themselves competing with alien corporations that possessed centuries of advantage. Human workers seeking opportunities off-planet discovered they were only offered the most menial positions: maintenance, waste management, basic labor. Jiwoo managed to secure a position as a research assistant at a Vexari Biological Institute, using her credentials and the aliens' underestimation of human intelligence to gain access. What she discovered there chilled her to the bone. "They've been cataloging us," she told Do-Hyun during a secure meeting in her tiny apartment. The walls were lined with signal-blocking material he had smuggled from military stockpiles. Not just humans, all Earth species, plants, animals, microorganisms. They're especially interested in our extremophiles, organisms that survive in extreme conditions. Do-Hyun leaned forward, his weathered face grim in the low light. "Why? What could they want with Earth's biology?" "Resources," Jiwoo said, pulling up schematics on her tablet. "The Vexari homeworld is dying. They've depleted their biodiversity through centuries of exploitation. Earth is a treasure trove to them, our genetic diversity, our water supplies. We're not allies, we're a resource cache." Their fears were confirmed when Do-Hyun was assigned to security detail for a high-level Vexari meeting. Hiding a recording device in his uniform, he captured devastating information. "The human settlement phase is proceeding as planned," Taylor told his subordinates. "Their leaders are easily manipulated with promises of technology. Begin establishing Outposts near the major freshwater sources. The population reduction can commence within 3 standard cycles. That night, Jiwoo and Do-hyun met with a trusted network of scientists, military personnel, and government officials who shared their suspicions. Professor Tai-ho Sung, an elderly linguist who had been studying Vexari communication patterns, brought additional troubling news. "I've decoded some of their private transmissions," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "They refer to Earth as Acquisition Target 7. Targets 1 through 6 were other inhabited worlds. The native species now serve as labor forces throughout Vexari territory." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity wasn't being welcomed into a galactic community. We were being prepped for colonization. "We need to prepare," Do-hyun said finally, his military training kicking in. "Not with direct confrontation. Their weapons would obliterate our conventional forces. We need information, allies from other species who might resent Vexari dominance." Jiwoo nodded, already formulating plans. "And we need to understand why they consider us inferior. There's something about human biology they dismiss as primitive, but what if it's actually something they fear?" As the meeting concluded, the small group looked at each other with newfound resolve. The Vexari had arrived expecting to find an easily controlled species. They had mocked humanity's place in the cosmos, dismissed our potential, and planned our subjugation. They had no idea what humans were capable of when threatened, and they were about to find out. 3 years had passed since the Vexari arrived on Earth. What began as cultural exchange centers had gradually transformed into something more ominous. The aliens now called them administrative outposts, and they appeared near every major freshwater source across the planet. Lake Baikal, the Great Lakes, the Amazon Basin, all now featured the same sleek obsidian structures that hummed day and night. Jiwoo Park stood at her apartment window, watching the lights of Seoul flicker beneath a hazy sky. The city had changed. Vexari shuttles zipped between skyscrapers, their anti-gravity technology making them eerily silent. Alien script now appeared alongside Korean and English on street signs and advertisements. But most telling were the new checkpoints, where humans needed special permits to enter certain areas of their own city. Her secure phone buzzed, a message from Do-hyun. "Turn on the news. Pacific Rim. Now." She grabbed the remote, her heart racing as the screen illuminated. A news anchor with tired eyes reported that Indonesia had refused to allow a new Vexari resource assessment team to establish operations in their territorial waters. The Indonesian Navy had blocked the alien vessels. "This is unprecedented resistance," the anchor said, her voice carefully neutral. "Vexari Ambassador Taylor has requested an emergency meeting with world leaders." The feed cut to a press conference, already in progress. Taylor's gray face showed no expression, it never did, but his voice carried a new edge. "We regret that some factions on Earth fail to appreciate the benefits of our presence," he said. "Perhaps a demonstration of the alternative is necessary." The broadcast switched to aerial footage of a small, uninhabited island in the Pacific. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a beam of intense light shot down from somewhere beyond the clouds. Where the island had been, there was only steam rising from boiling water. The wire the demonstration weapon used was operating at less than 1% capacity. Taylor continued as gasps echoed through the press room. "We value our relationship with humanity, but misunderstandings cannot be tolerated. All Vexari installations are now under Level 3 protection protocols." Jiwoo's phone buzzed again. "Meeting. The usual place. 1 hour." The basement of the old bookstore had become their war room. Maps covered the walls, showing Vexari outpost locations worldwide. Professor Taeho had installed jamming equipment to prevent surveillance. 20 people now gathered around the large table, scientists, soldiers, government officials who had grown suspicious of the aliens' intentions. Do-hyun entered last, his face grim. "They've done it before," he said without preamble, dropping a data chip on the table. "Meet Haru. He smuggled this out at great personal risk." A hologram flickered to life, showing a small, blue-skinned being with 4 arms and large, sad eyes. The alien spoke in a whisper, its words translated by subtitles. "I am the last free Marvesian," the message began. "My world was the 6th acquisition target of the Vexari Imperium. They came as friends, as they always do. Within 10 cycles, my people were relocated to work camps. Our oceans, our beautiful oceans, were drained for their mineral content. The few who resisted were made examples of." The group watched in horror as the message continued, describing a pattern repeated across 6 worlds. The Vexari would arrive, infiltrate planetary governance, establish outposts, demonstrate overwhelming military power, and then begin resource extraction that inevitably destroyed the native ecosystem. "They're parasites," whispered Anna, a climate scientist from Brazil. "They consume and move on." "How did you find this Marvesian?" asked Taiho, his aged hands trembling slightly. Do-Yun's eyes darkened. "There's an underground network forming among the servant species. The Vexari consider them too simple to organize, too broken to resist. That's their weakness. They underestimate everyone." Jiwoo pulled up her latest research on the main screen. "I've been analyzing their interest patterns. They're obsessed with our water, yes, but also our biodiversity. Earth has something the other worlds didn't, an extraordinary variety of life, forms and ecosystems." "But why?" asked Raj, a former diplomat who had resigned when his government became too accommodating to alien demands. "What do they want with our plants and animals?" "Genetic material," Jiwoo explained. "Their own world suffered some kind of collapse. They've been harvesting biological resources across the galaxy, trying to rebuild what they destroyed at home." The meeting was interrupted by an urgent alert on all their devices. Breaking news showed Vexari ships descending on coastal cities worldwide. In Jakarta, Rio de Janeiro, Mumbai, and dozens of other locations, alien troops were forcibly evacuating residents from waterfront properties. "For your protection," the Vexari broadcast claimed. Temporary relocation during resource assessment. The group watched footage of families being herded onto transports, allowed only what they could carry. "It's starting," Do-Hyun said quietly. Just like the Marvesian warned. Li Wei, who commanded a Chinese special forces unit sympathetic to their cause, slammed his fist on the table. "We should strike now. My team can hit the Beijing outpost tonight." "And then what?" Jiwoo challenged. "They'll vaporize Shanghai in response. We need to be smarter than that." The room erupted into heated debate until Taiho raised his hand. When the old professor spoke, everyone listened. "The Galactic Council," he said simply. "Surely other species would object to this pattern of conquest." Raj shook his head. "I tried through diplomatic channels. The Council considers this an internal matter between Earth and the Vexari. Our representatives are barely acknowledged in Council meetings." "Because they think we're weak," Anna said bitterly. "Primitive, just like the Marvesians." "No," Jiwoo said, a new determination in her voice. "Because they haven't seen what humans can really do when pushed too far. The Vexari have a critical blind spot. They judge species by their technology, not their adaptability or resolve." Do-Yun nodded slowly, the strategist in him awakening. "Guerrilla warfare, asymmetric response. We hit them where they don't expect, then disappear." "We need more than just resistance," Jiwoo insisted. "We need to understand ourselves. Why the Vexari consider human biology inefficient yet worth studying. There's something about us they're not telling us." As they formulated plans into the night, reports flooded in of more relocations across the globe. Resistance was forming naturally as humans refused to leave their homes. In some cities, riots broke out. The Vexari response was swift and brutal. Precision strikes that left smoking craters where protest leaders had stood moments before. The facade of friendship had fully crumbled. Earth was under occupation, and humanity faced a choice: submit like the 6 worlds before them, or find a way to fight an enemy with vastly superior technology. What the Vexari would soon discover is that humans had something none of their previous conquests possessed: a stubborn refusal to accept defeat, even when victory seemed impossible. The real war was just beginning. The coastal city of Busan had become unrecognizable. Where fishing boats once bobbed in the harbor, Vexari extraction platforms now towered like metallic monsters, draining the sea not just of water, but of life itself. The process they called comprehensive biological harvesting left behind only sterile brine. Locals who had fished these waters for generations watched helplessly as their livelihood vanished before their eyes. It was these fishermen who first joined the resistance in significant numbers. With nothing left to lose, they offered their boats, their knowledge of hidden coves, and their unwavering determination to the growing movement. Jiwoo's network had expanded dramatically in the months since the relocations began. What started as isolated pockets of resistance had evolved into a global underground. Communicating through old-fashioned methods the tech-dependent Vexari overlooked, handwritten notes, coded radio transmissions, and human couriers who memorized messages rather than carrying them digitally. Tonight's operation was their most ambitious yet. Intelligence had confirmed that the Vexari were transferring captured human scientists between facilities. Researchers who had disappeared after asking too many questions about alien technology or biology. Team positions? Do-hyun's voice came through the secure comm unit pinned inside Jiwoo's collar. Beach team in position, reported Li Wei from his location 2 kilometers down the coast. Road team ready, came Anna's voice, tense but steady. Jiwoo checked her watch. 3 minutes to convoy arrival. She crouched behind a rusted shipping container, heart pounding as she watched the empty coastal road. The plan was simple yet dangerous. Disable the transport, extract the prisoners, disappear into the maze of abandoned warehouses before Vexari reinforcements arrived. Headlights appeared in the distance. Right on schedule. The Vexari were nothing if not punctual. The convoy consisted of 3 vehicles. A lead scout, the prisoner transport in the middle, and a heavily armed rear guard. Now, Do-hyun whispered. From her vantage point, Jiwoo saw the flash of the EMP device Anna's team had planted. The convoy's lights flickered and died as all 3 vehicles rolled to a stop. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the doors of the lead vehicle burst open, and 4 Vexari security officers emerged, their weapons drawn. Li Wei's team struck with practiced precision. Non-lethal rounds filled with a sedative compound hit 3 of the guards. The 4th managed to fire a single energy blast before going down, the bolt sizzling as it cut through the night air. Move in, Do-hyun ordered. Jiwoo sprinted from her hiding place as resistance fighters converged on the transport vehicle. Its reinforced doors presented a challenge, but they had prepared for this. 2 fighters attached a device to the locking mechanism, salvaged Vexari technology they had modified for their own use. The door hissed open to reveal 6 human prisoners, thin and pale, blinking in confusion at their sudden rescue. Jiwoo recognized one immediately from her university days. Dr. Hyejin Song, one of Earth's leading neurologists. Quickly, Jiwoo urged, helping the disoriented scientists from the vehicle. We have less than 5 minutes before their security system alerts the main outpost. They had nearly reached the warehouse when the night erupted with the whine of Vexari engines. A patrol craft, sleek and predatory, swept overhead, its searchlight cutting through the darkness. Scatter, Do-hyun shouted. The group split as planned, heading in different directions with assigned guides. Jiwoo grabbed Hyejin's arm, pulling her toward a storm drain they had prepared as an escape route. This way! They splashed through knee-deep water, the sounds of pursuit fading behind them. Only when they reached the underground bunker 3 kilometers away did Jiwoo allow herself to breathe normally again. The command center was buzzing with activity as team members reported in. Against all odds, the operation had succeeded. All 6 scientists rescued, with only 2 resistance fighters wounded. Hyejin sat wrapped in a blanket, sipping hot tea with shaking hands. Her eyes, though haunted, burned with an intensity that caught Jiwoo's attention. They've been experimenting on us, Hyejin said without preamble when Jiwoo sat beside her, not just studying, actively testing human limits. The room fell silent as everyone turned to listen. What kind of tests? Do-hyun asked, his voice tight. stress responses, pain thresholds, adaptation to extreme conditions. Hyejin set down her cup. They're fascinated by something they call our neural plasticity, our brain's ability to form new connections, to adapt to changing circumstances. Taeho leaned forward, his weathered face thoughtful. Why would that interest them so much? Because they don't have it. Hyejin's voice grew stronger. The Vexari evolved differently. Their neural pathways are incredibly efficient but essentially fixed at maturity. They're brilliant, but they can't improvise the way we can. They don't adapt well to unexpected situations. Li Wei frowned. But their technology is centuries beyond ours. How could they have advanced so far with this limitation? Collective knowledge accumulation, Hyejin explained. Their society never forgets anything. Perfect record-keeping, perfect implementation of established solutions. But when faced with something truly new, she paused. There's more. They're especially interested in how humans respond to hopeless situations. What do you mean? Jiwoo pressed. In their experiments, they pushed human subjects to breaking points. Exhaustion, pain, isolation. They were stunned by our capacity to endure, to find meaning in suffering. Hyejin's eyes welled with tears. They called it an evolutionary abnormality, but I think they fear it. The implications hung in the air. Do-hyun was the first to speak. We've been fighting the wrong war. We can't match their technology, but maybe we don't need to. Over the next 3 days, as more resistance cells reported in, a daring plan took shape. Instead of direct confrontation, they would leverage what the Vexari saw as human weaknesses. Our unpredictability, our emotional responses, our seemingly irrational willingness to sacrifice for causes beyond our individual survival. The plan crystallized when resistance fighters raided a small Vexari research facility in the mountains of Argentina. Among the data they recovered was a classified assessment of humanity's threat potential. The document referred repeatedly to humanity's disturbing psychological resilience and potentially dangerous adaptive capabilities. They think we're primitive, Jiwoo told the assembled resistance leaders during their secure conference call. But they're beginning to realize we're dangerous in ways they never anticipated. Reports from across the globe confirmed the same pattern. In areas where humans had organized effective resistance, the Vexari responses showed increasing confusion. Their perfect, logical strategies faltered against humans who changed tactics constantly, who accepted losses for strategic gains, who employed solutions no Vexari would ever consider. The tipping point came when a resistance cell in New Zealand successfully infiltrated a major water extraction facility. Instead of destroying it, they reprogrammed its automated systems to fail in ways that appeared random and unrelated. The Vexari engineers, unable to identify a pattern in the malfunctions, spent weeks chasing phantom problems. They fear what they don't understand, Hyejin said during a strategy session. And what they understand least about us is our ability to endure, to hope when there is no logical reason for hope. Jiwoo looked around at the faces of the resistance, ordinary people who had found extraordinary courage in the darkest of times. The spark of rebellion had been lit, not by superior weapons or technology, but by humanity's most basic quality, our stubborn refusal to accept the impossible. Then let's become their worst nightmare, she said. Let's show them exactly what humans do when pushed to the edge. The resistance had a name now, whispered in secret messages across the globe. Operation Phoenix. Like the mythical bird, humanity would rise from the ashes, transformed by the very fire meant to destroy it. The real test was yet to come. The abandoned subway tunnel beneath Old Tokyo had become the nerve center for Asia's resistance operations. Maps covered the curved walls, marked with red pins showing Vexari installations and blue pins indicating successful human strikes. The number of blue pins had grown steadily over the past month, small victories in what had seemed an impossible war. Captain Minji Lee wiped sweat from his brow as he laid out the captured Vexari weapon on the workbench. His team had ambushed a patrol near Osaka last week, taking their first energy rifle intact. Now came the challenging part. understanding how it worked. "The power cell connects here," he muttered, carefully separating components. "But there's something strange about the trigger mechanism." Beside him, Jiwoo studied the weapon with equal intensity. Her background was in biology, not weapons technology, but the Resistance had taught everyone to adapt beyond their expertise. "It's tuned to their physiology," she realized suddenly. "Look, the grip is designed for their three-fingered hands, and this sensor here, I think it reads their specific body temperature." Min-jae nodded slowly. "A built-in security measure? The weapon won't fire for humans. Then we change it." He reached for his tools with newfound determination. "Their mistake is thinking we can't figure this out." Similar scenes played out in hidden bases worldwide as Operation Phoenix entered its second month. The strategy was working better than anyone had dared hope. Instead of attempting to match Vexari firepower, the Resistance focused on disruption, adaptation, and psychological impact. In the Brazilian Amazon, Resistance fighters led by Ana had learned to jam Vexari communications by broadcasting on frequencies that interfered with their neural implants, causing disorientation without permanent harm. In Eastern Europe, underground hackers had cracked portions of the Vexari command codes, sending false orders that had extraction teams chasing phantom human encampments for weeks. But the most significant breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Haeun was just 16 when the Vexari took her parents. Once a quiet high school student with a talent for video games, she now ran the Resistance's most successful drone program from a basement in Seoul. Her fingers flew over the modified controller as she guided a tiny surveillance unit through the ventilation system of a Vexari command center. "There," she whispered, her eyes fixed on the screen. "Central processing room, just like the schematic showed." Through the drone's camera, they watched as 3 Vexari officers gathered around a holographic display showing a worldwide map. Their clicking speech was partially translated by software the Resistance had developed. Human resistance, unexpected patterns, suggest implementation of Final Protocol. Do-hyun's face hardened as he watched. Final Protocol? That doesn't sound good. The drone captured more fragments as it eavesdropped. The Vexari Supreme Commander, a figure they had never seen before, appeared in the hologram. Taller than the others, with deeper gray skin and eyes like polished obsidian, he spoke with authority that needed no translation. "The human problem has become unacceptable. Their adaptation rate exceeds projections. Begin preparations for planetary sterilization. Harvest teams will extract final biological samples within 3 cycles." Silence fell over the Resistance base as the implications sank in. 3 cycles. 9 Earth days until the Vexari would attempt to eradicate human life entirely. "We need to inform all cells," Do-hyun said, his military training kicking in despite the horror of what they'd just heard. "And we need to accelerate the Phoenix Protocol." The Phoenix Protocol had been Heejin's brainchild, born from her understanding of what the Vexari had learned and feared about human biology. After escaping captivity, she had worked tirelessly with Resistance scientists to develop weapons that exploited the aliens' neurological weaknesses. "It's ready," she announced at the emergency council meeting held 6 hours later. But untested on this scale. The weapon wasn't designed to kill. Instead, it generated specific electromagnetic patterns that disrupted the rigid neural pathways of the Vexari, creating sensations similar to what humans would call extreme anxiety or confusion. In small-scale tests, it had rendered Vexari soldiers completely incapacitated without causing permanent damage. "The risk is that we only have enough units to target their 7 primary command centers," Hyejin explained. If it fails, we're no worse off than facing planetary sterilization," Li Wei pointed out grimly. Operation Phoenix launched 30 hours later. Across the globe, 7 elite teams infiltrated Vexari command centers simultaneously, carrying devices that looked like ordinary backpacks. The plan depended on perfect timing. All devices needed to activate within a 2-minute window to prevent the Vexari from adapting. Min-jae led the team targeting the Tokyo Command Center. They moved through maintenance tunnels that the Vexari with their disdain for human infrastructure, had never bothered to secure properly. His modified energy rifle, now responsive to human touch, felt warm against his back as they approached the central cooling system. "Remember," he whispered to his team, "place the device directly on the main coolant pipe. The liquid will carry the energy signature throughout the facility." Across the world, from New York to Sydney, Moscow to Rio, resistance teams executed identical maneuvers with textbook precision. The countdown synchronized through old-fashioned mechanical watches, technology too simple for the Vexari to detect or jam. At exactly 0300 UTC, 7 Phoenix devices activated. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Inside the Tokyo facility, Minjay's team watched from their hiding place as Vexari officers stumbled and clutched their heads. Some fell to their knees, making high-pitched keening sounds that their translators couldn't process. Others fired weapons wildly, hitting nothing. "It's working," he breathed into his comm unit. "They can't function." Similar reports flooded in from other teams. In the confusion, resistance fighters seized control of communication arrays, broadcasting contradictory orders to Vexari forces worldwide. Some extraction ships, responding to garbled commands, even began lifting off prematurely, leaving ground forces stranded. A captured Vexari commander, his neural functions partially restored after the Phoenix device was deactivated, stared at his human captors with something new in his obsidian eyes. Fear. "Impossible," he hissed when Minji demonstrated how they had modified the Vexari energy rifle to work with human biology. "Your species lacks the neural capacity to comprehend our technology." "That's where you're wrong," Minji replied, disassembling and reassembling the weapon with practiced ease. "Humans don't just use technology. We reimagine it. We make it our own." But victory was far from complete. As the first day of the coordinated attack ended, orbital scans detected massive Vexari warships emerging from hyperspace, the Planet Killer Fleet, arriving ahead of schedule. In the Seoul Command Center, Do-hyun studied the images with grim determination. "They're panicking," he said. "That's good, but dangerous. They're moving directly to planetary sterilization." Ji-woo nodded, her face pale but resolved. "Then it's time for the final phase. Contact all bases. Operation Prometheus begins now." The Sao human resistance had revealed its hidden power, adaptability, creativity, and an unbreakable will to survive. But the greatest test still lay ahead, as the skies darkened with the arrival of a fleet designed for one purpose: the complete eradication of life on Earth. The war for humanity's survival had reached its final, desperate hour. The night sky above, Earth had turned ominous. 7 massive Vexari warships hung in low orbit, their hulls reflecting sunlight with a sickly green glow. Military experts estimated each vessel carried enough firepower to level a continent. Together, they could render Earth uninhabitable within hours. Yet beneath the shadow of annihilation, humanity prepared for its most audacious gambit. "They think we've spent these years cowering," Ji-woo told the assembled resistance leaders during their final briefing. Her voice, transmitted through secure channels to bases worldwide, carried a quiet conviction. "They have no idea what we've really been doing." While the visible resistance had focused on disruption and guerrilla tactics, a secret initiative had been underway in hidden facilities across the globe. Engineer Jisoo Kang, once dismissed by colleagues as overly theoretical, had been leading a team of scientists in perhaps the most important project in human history. In an underground hangar carved beneath the Andes Mountains, Jisoo now stood before the fruits of their labor. 7 sleek spacecraft, unlike anything publicly known to exist on Earth, gleamed under the harsh lights. "We call them Prometheus vessels," she explained to Do-hyun, who had arrived to oversee the final preparations. "Hybrid technology, part reverse-engineered from Vexari systems, part entirely human innovation." The vessels looked deceptively simple, lacking the ornate design elements typical of alien craft. Where Vexari ships bristled with external weapons, these human vessels appeared almost unarmed. "The outer hull incorporates materials salvaged from their damaged shuttles," Jisoo continued, running her hand along the smooth surface. But the neural interface is entirely our creation. That neural interface was the key to everything. Early in the occupation, resistant scientists had discovered why the Vexari were so fascinated by human brain structure. Unlike the aliens' rigid neural pathways, human brains could form new connections constantly, adapting, learning, and improvising in ways the Vexari could not comprehend. Each ship bonds directly with its pilot, Jisoo explained. The vessel becomes an extension of human consciousness, intuitive, unpredictable, capable of split-second adaptations no computer could match. Dohyun nodded slowly, taking in the implications. And the Vexari have no defense against this because they can't even conceive of it. Exactly, Jisoo's eyes gleamed with fierce pride. They built their systems on logic and predictability. We built ours on human intuition. Similar hangars around the world prepared for simultaneous launch. The plan was simple in concept, nearly impossible in execution. 7 human vessels would engage the Vexari fleet, not to destroy it outright. That was beyond their capabilities, but to create enough chaos to allow a specialized team to board the Vexari command ship. At the heart of Operation Prometheus was a desperate gamble. If they could capture or disable the fleet's command vessel, they might force a stalemate. Across the globe, pilots prepared for what many considered a suicide mission. They came from diverse backgrounds, former Air Force pilots, civilian flight instructors, even a crop duster from rural Ukraine whose natural flying instincts had tested off the charts. What united them was a singular quality: exceptional neural plasticity, the very trait the Vexari feared. Dohyun suited up alongside the other pilots. Though his background was Army, not Air Force, his experiences fighting the Vexari had given him unique insights into their tactics. The neural interface suit felt strange against his skin, lightweight yet somehow substantial, covered in a network of subtle sensors. Remember, Jisoo told them during the final briefing, these ships respond to intention more than physical control. Don't overthink. Just fly. Launch hour arrived with terrible timing. The Vexari fleet had begun positioning for their first strike, targeting Earth's major population centers. Resistance monitors detected energy buildups in their main weapons arrays. It's now or never, came the encrypted message from command. Across 6 continents, hangar doors opened. The Prometheus vessels rose silently into the night sky, their advanced propulsion systems betraying none of the fire and thunder of conventional rockets. To observers below, they might have appeared as nothing more than shooting stars rising upward, humanity's hopes given physical form. The Vexari detected the approaching craft too late. By the time their sensors registered the threat, the human vessels had already split into attack formation, executing maneuvers that defied conventional physics. Inside his vessel, Dohyun experienced flight unlike anything he had imagined. The neural link made the ship feel like an extension of his body. He thought about diving, and the craft responded instantly. When 3 Vexari interceptors locked onto his position, he didn't need to calculate evasive patterns. He simply reacted, his human instincts translating into movement too unpredictable for their targeting systems. Across the battlefield, for that was what near-Earth orbit had become, the other human pilots reported similar experiences. Their vessels danced through Vexari formations, causing chaos and confusion. The aliens' responses grew increasingly desperate as they failed to establish effective targeting solutions against the erratic human movements. "They're breaking formation," reported Hana, a former helicopter pilot now commanding one of the Prometheus vessels. "Their attack coordination is falling apart." The human craft were outnumbered 10 to 1, yet they had achieved the impossible. They had disrupted the precision that made Vexari fleets so formidable. Where the aliens relied on complex battle algorithms, humans relied on instinct and improvisation. On the Vexari command ship, alarms blared as systems reported inexplicable failures. Their sensors, calibrated to predict enemy movements based on logical patterns, couldn't track the seemingly random trajectories of the human vessels. Dohyun's craft took a glancing hit from a Vexari energy weapon. Systems flashed red, but the neural interface compensated. rerouting power and adjusting flight dynamics on the fly. He pushed through the pain of the feedback loop and locked onto his target, the command vessel's main communication array. "Boarding team in position," came a tense voice through his neural link. "We need that opening, Captain." "Understood." Do-Yun didn't speak the words aloud. The neural link transmitted his thoughts directly. "All Prometheus units, converge on my position. Pattern Omega." Pattern Omega wasn't in any formal battle plan. It had emerged spontaneously during a training simulation, a maneuver so counterintuitive that the pilots had named it after the end of all things. 6 human vessels spiraled toward a single point, drawing enemy fire while creating a momentary blind spot in the Vexari defense grid. Through this gap, barely visible among the chaos, a 7th vessel approached the command ship's hull. The boarding was silent and swift. While the space battle raged, a specialized team led by Jiwoo infiltrated the Vexari command vessel through a maintenance airlock. They carried with them a modified version of the Phoenix device, designed not to incapacitate, but to establish direct neural communication with the Vexari leadership. What followed wasn't conquest, but conversation. Perhaps the first true communication between species since the Vexari arrived on Earth. Through the neural link, the Vexari Supreme Commander experienced something utterly alien to his kind: human consciousness. Not just words or images, but the full spectrum of human emotion, creativity, and determination. He felt the grief of families separated by relocation, the fear of extinction, and most powerfully, the hope that transcended all logic. The battle ended not with Earth's destruction or the Vexari's defeat, but with something unprecedented: AI ceasefire. 3 days later, representatives from the Galactic Council arrived, drawn by reports of a primitive species somehow holding their own against the mighty Vexari fleet. What they found challenged the established hierarchy of galactic civilization. In the peace negotiations that followed, Dr. Jiwoo Park revealed humanity's final advantage. Standing before representatives from 27 alien species, she offered terms that stunned the assembly. "We do not seek vengeance," she declared. "We seek partnership. The Vexari need biological diversity to save their dying world. Earth has abundance to share, if asked rather than taken." The Vexari delegation, still struggling to comprehend how humans had achieved the impossible, found themselves facing not retribution, but opportunity. The neural communication device had shown them something their rigid minds had never considered. Cooperation could yield better results than conquest. In the months that followed, Earth took its place as a recognized member of the galactic community, not as a conquered world, but as equals. Human adaptability, once mocked by the Vexari, became a valued trait sought by species across the stars. Diplomatic envoys requested human advisors to help solve problems that had stumped their best minds for generations. The Vexari themselves underwent a cultural transformation. Their scientists worked alongside humans to develop sustainable resource extraction methods that benefited both worlds. The rigid hierarchy that had defined their society for millennia began to show the first signs of flexibility, inspired by the species they had once dismissed as primitive. On a viewpoint overlooking the restored Busan harbor, now home to both human fishing boats and a small Vexari research outpost, Do-Hyun and Jiwoo watched the sunset. "Did you ever think we'd end up here?" he asked, gesturing toward the peaceful scene below. Jiwoo smiled, the weariness of war finally fading from her eyes. Not victory, not defeat, but something entirely new. How very human of us. Across the stars, other subjugated worlds looked to Earth with renewed hope. The species the Vexari had conquered now whispered a new word: human. It meant different things in different languages, but the core meaning remained the same. Those who bend but never break. Those who find strength in adaptability. Those who turned mockery into respect. The galaxy would never be the same,